Got it.
Got it.
All right. I'm Michelle Rehill. I'm the chairperson of the Northborough Library Board of Trustees. And I call this meeting to order at 7:01 p.m. I will now read the governance advisory. The open meeting of the Library Board of Trustees is being conducted remotely pursuant to Chapter 22 of the Acts of 2022, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, signed into law on July 16, 2022. All members of the Library Board of Trustees are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The act allows the Library Board of Trustees to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless the chair notes otherwise. Members of the public who wish to view the live stream of the meeting may do so by going to Northborough Remote Meetings on YouTube via the link listed on the agenda. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will not feature public comment. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative that you are present. Brittany Burns.
Brittany Burns here.
Mitch Cohen.
Mitch Cohen, hello.
Mary Crowley.
Mary Crowley here.
Pat Fonts.
Pat Fonts here.
Jim Hogan.
Jim Hogan here.
Jocelyn McElhenney.
Jocelyn McElhenney here.
Beth Samus.
Beth Samus here.
Richard Tucker. Oh, you're on mute. There you need to unmute, Richard. Oh, still muted.
What about my?
There you go. You're better. Hello, Richard.
Hello.
Thank you. I'm Michelle Rehill. I'm here, and Library Director Jen Bruno is also here with us tonight. All righty, with those formalities out of the way, I called us to order, and my opening remarks are Happy Pie Day.
Yes.
See? All this extra time I had because it was a snow day and I didn't bake a pie. I don't know what I was thinking. All righty, moving on to approval of the minutes from February 14th. Does anybody have any questions, comments, or corrections? And if not, can someone make a motion to accept the minutes as presented?
So
Before, can we just, I have a question.
About the minutes?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, I had made a mistake, which you had picked up, which I had corrected, and I wasn't sure that the minutes that went out had the corrected version. And it had to do with the number 3, new business, the supplemental budget request. I just want to make sure that everybody has the correct version of that.
So I had made that correction. And there was, I think, a typo that Michelle had found that I was able to correct, and I sent that corrected version out, and then I got your corrected version. They say essentially the same thing. I think we just worded additional staffing hours a little bit differently. So the correction is there.
Okay.
Yep.
Just want to make sure everybody is on the same page.
Yep. All right. Excellent. So that being clarified, would someone like to make a motion to accept the minutes as presented?
I will again move that we accept the minutes as presented.
Thank you,
I'll
Jocelyn.
second.
I'm sorry, who seconded?
Beth.
Beth did, thank you. All right, again, by roll call, all those in favor of accepting the minutes as presented. Brittany Burns?
Brittany Burns, aye.
Mitch, I'm just going with first names.
Mitch Cohen, aye.
Mary?
I abstain. It wasn't there.
Thank you, Pat?
At once, aye.
Jim,
Jim, aye.
Jocelyn,
Jocelyn McKellany, aye.
Beth,
Beth Thomas, I.
Richard Tucker.
Richard Tucker, aye.
I also concur. Thank you. Motion passes with one in the positive with one abstention. So moving on to the appropriations report. Any questions or comments about the appropriations report as presented?
Have one comment, which is simply to say, do not panic when you see the building maintenance line.
Too
We've
late.
had a lot of maintenance this year. Hopefully we're on the other end of that. Most of that was HVAC related. We did have a problem with the crash bar on the front door and had to have that replaced. For budget awareness, we only replaced the one that was broken. So they don't quite match, but they don't look that different. Sean is aware that we're up against almost twice what our budgeted line item is for building maintenance. John is aware. We're just sort of waiting until we see what the other lines are going to look like toward the end to see what the shortfall is. But everybody that needs to help me figure out what to do with that is aware of it and is not super concerned, although let's just hope nothing else goes wrong.
All righty. Any other questions? If not, we can move on to the library director's report. You've been busy.
We have been so busy. I feel like I say that every month, but last month, if you look up at the top sheet with the stats,
Right.
it was so busy. We circulated about 1,000 items more
I
than
applaud you for that.
previous. Yeah, it's between that and I mean, more people than I think I've ever seen in the building at once. Katrina had almost 100 people for her music mashup program last week. So that'll show up in next month's stats. The day before that, she had just about the same number for, I think it was toddler time. It's wild. We had a teen like family program on the history of Nintendo over the weekend that had 50 people in it. So people are starting to move around again. And it's just such a great thing, but it does put pressure on us, especially when like last week we had somebody out with illness and somebody else out with a stomach bug and somebody else out with an injury and so on and so forth. So we get there, but yeah, sometimes it's a little easier than others. That being said, last month was a great month for us in a lot of ways. We're really, really proud of the CPR, AED and Narcan training that we're doing for the public as well as staff. So our goal is to get, I think there's fewer than 15 full-time town employees that didn't make it to the certification part of the CPR training. So our goal is just to get back with them and get as many people trained. Everybody wants the training. It was just, there were a couple of mornings where people like things come up. So we just have to reschedule the test out. But the entire library staff now has AED, CPR, and Narcan training.
Excellent.
It's
Awesome.
so cool. Yeah. And Kristen Black from the health department ordered the AEDs, so we'll be getting that soon. It's going to be great to have that. It's a public building. There's not emergencies often, but I think recently we've all seen what a difference it can make. If you have access to CPR training and an AED, you can save somebody's life. So the AED will go outside the gate so that if there's a meeting late at night, it's not inaccessible. And we'll get specific training on the machine, but it's really, really simple. Usually when you turn an AED on, it takes over. It just tells you what to do. So it's, you know, and it'll have a little bit of, it'll have a little compartment on the side for Narcan. So if that's a concern and somebody needs that, it's available as well. So that was just one of many things that we did last month, but that we were really, really super happy about. And yeah, our program attendance is, you know, we did 62 programs in February. That's a lot. There's 28 days in February.
And you're not open for all of them.
Right. 1,600 roughly attendees. So that's been, like I said, they all come in. A lot of those are children's programs. They stay in the library, they use the library, they check books out. It's just so much fun, but it's super busy.
Congrats to you and the staff on that. That is wonderful.
The staff, honestly, I cannot say enough good things about them. They're so welcoming, and it makes such a huge difference in how many, like when people want to come back. We start to see more regulars, different regulars. Yeah, it's just, you know, every week somebody said, oh, you know, this is my first time here. You know, so-and-so told me that I should come check out this library because you guys are so friendly. You know, so I thought I'd check it out. And like, that's really fun when you have that word of mouth marketing that kind of just like promotes you for yourself. So it means patrons are happy. It means residents are happy. Yeah, it's really great. So
I went to one of the Narcan trainings for the public and it was a really, really great program. Yeah, I was very impressed. And it was packed. Yeah.
yeah, we're just gonna do 2 a month until demand dies down. And same with the public CPR classes. We put up 2 CPR classes through Be Well just to see how the reaction would be. And they sold out with a wait list right away. So we put up, I think Joanna booked 6 more into June, and Allie put them on the rec. So there's a small charge. So our registration software doesn't work very well for that. So the rec department handled that. As soon as she put them up, 3 of them were sold out with a wait list.
My gosh.
It was less than an hour. She sent us a screenshot. We were like, oh my goodness. So we're looking at, you know, how much more can we offer, because clearly Northborough residents are looking for this training. And, you know, almost everybody that was registered signed up or showed up on the Saturday where it was bad weather. Usually bad weather is like, nobody's going to come to your program. But she had almost everybody registered, was able to make it. The 2 that couldn't rescheduled. And there were additional people who had not registered who just offered to pay on the spot to take the empty slots. So yeah, it's, when you find a winner, you don't have to work that hard to advertise. And that was certainly such a great collaborative effort between the fire department, who gave the test out training to all the town staff, the health department, who's been doing the Narcan training, rec department handling the registrations, the library offering the space and doing the promotions. I think that's collaboration at its best. And it's been really, really successful.
Great. Congratulations.
That's really great news.
I was going to say, I really like seeing that departmental collaboration. That's awesome.
We have great department heads. There's some brilliant people. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I tried to keep my report short because we have new business. We don't always have new business.
Three more voting things in addition to
Yes.
the usual adjournments. So shall we move on to the Mass Cultural Council grant?
Yeah.
You all have that?
Yep. I have a quick question about the items. Are they in any kind of priority order?
The first 3 are the same priority level for me. just because we had identified the desks and the lobby redesign in the Building and Grounds Committee. I'm not sure how much the circulation desk is going to cost, so it did not sort of rise in priority for me. I think the top 3 priorities that I've listed are probably all things that we can do with this amount of money.
Well, that was my question, because that really isn't a lot of money that it's going to go rather quickly.
Yes.
Um,
And there
Personally,
is also, oh, I'm sorry.
no, that's fine. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say the Friends also have a bit of money remaining from renovation, so that money is supposed to be used for projects like this. So there's an additional amount of money that can help us get through some of this.
My only request would be that the children's desk gets moved to the top.
We have we're waiting on quotes.
Okay.
I had the children's department tell me what they want. And now so one of the bigger things that we did, because we have been so busy, especially in the children's room, is we moved all of the checkout to the checkout desk so that the children's department can focus more on readers advisory and helping kids and things like that. Right. So with that change, I asked them to come up with a plan for a desk that would be more useful for them. And Katrina has been working on getting quotes for me.
That's excellent.
Yep.
That was my only concern, as long as with that small pot of money available, that gets moved up.
Yep.
Thank
I
you.
think that one will be, that one will definitely happen.
Okay. Because if you've ever seen them work, it's like juggling.
Yes. Yes. It's a bit of a hot mess at that desk. It's a little better now with all of the circulation stuff.
Even with that, it's juggling.
It's not a great setup. Yeah. The phone is too far away from the desk or the
Absolutely.
seat.
What do you see as being different with the circulation desk? Is it be shorter or maybe less wide or?
I think the biggest thing that we talked about wanting is a way for them to get out
Right.
without
Access.
going all the way around. Everything else about the desk is fairly functional. So I would hate to, I think I would prefer to almost first go the route of finding a carpenter to tell me if they could make adjustments to the desk that would give us like a lift, like a hinge.
Oh, excellent. Good question.
Yeah. Rather than, I mean, that desk is fine, right? It's huge. I don't know how I'm getting it out of the building. So if I can modify it and accomplish that goal, that was our biggest issue. Everything else is fine.
Okay, great.
Are there any other questions or comments about it? Or are we ready to move on to a vote? Or actually a motion to vote?
Move that we vote.
All right.
I second that.
Okay, wait a minute.
I apologize. My video was glitching, so I'm here. I'm just not.
Hey, we didn't forget you.
And just because this has to, well, I mean, this will show up on the selectmen's agenda. If you could have the motion be very specific with the amount, I think that would be helpful.
What
Can I
could we-
ask who seconded that?
Brittany.
Brittany, great, thank you.
All right.
So
So-
just
So
to be,
Jen, are
oh,
you,
sorry, are you going to read the motion, like the whole
Yes,
thing? Yeah.
I can.
I think somebody should, so that people who are watching know exactly what that is and it's consistent.
Do you mind if I read it, Michelle?
I do not mind. Please do.
Okay. The motion would be to accept a grant from the Mass Cultural Council on behalf of the library in the amount of $66,210.
All right. So the motion has been made and seconded. I will now do the roll call. All those in favor of accepting a grant from the Mass Cultural Council on behalf of the library in the amount of $66,210. say aye. Brittany Burns,
Brittany Burns, aye.
Mitch Cohen,
Mitch Cohen, aye.
Mary Crowley,
Mary Crowley, aye.
Pat Fonts,
Pat Fonts, aye.
Jim Hogan,
Jim Hogan, aye.
Jocelyn McElhenney,
Jocelyn McElhenney, aye.
Beth Samus,
Beth Samus, aye.
Richard Tucker.
Richard Tucker, aye.
I, Michelle Rehill, am also in favor. The motion passes unanimously. Awesome. I like getting free money.
Right?
Say,
And
I'd be
it's-
surprised if we didn't unanimously accept
know.
$66,000.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, like, no, give it back.
Eh,
Great job getting
Okay.
$66,000, Jen.
The next thing that we need to vote on is the changes made to the hotspot lending policy.
I have a little bit of additional context to provide for this policy. It is a little bit outdated. The loan period is now 3 weeks instead of 1 week. And we needed to give ourselves the ability to handle patrons who habitually don't return them on time. Because it really, really, really backs up. I mean, we do have, they're out all the time. There's often times when we don't have one available. And so when somebody is keeping it for several weeks past its due date, it's really not fair. We are moving to, right now we are using the same checkout system that we use for books. But that does not allow people to reserve equipment when they need it. So we went and purchased, it's the Acebet interactive software, which has a library of things specific module. So what you're going to see in the next week or two, as soon as we get it up on our website, is the library of things. Instead of the different ways that we've been handling registrations, you'll get a calendar of all of the equipment. So the snowshoes, the pickleball equipment, the VR goggles, the hotspots, the laptops, that will all be available on a calendar. You can specifically choose the day that you want to pick it up. And it's now a flexible due date. So if you don't want it for 3 weeks, you don't have to choose a 3-week loan period, but it won't go any longer than 3 weeks. So now I think it's just going to work better for people, because if you're going on vacation, you know the dates of your vacation. You don't want to have to wait until the day before, fly out somewhere to see if there's a hotspot available. That's not really the best service model. If you're going hiking and you want to take the telescope with you, or the birding kits or the hiking kits, you'd like to know for sure that they're there on the day that you need them. So we're excited about that shift. It's going to make it a little easier for us to manage all of the devices as well. So that was the additional context. Because originally our policy had also said that you cannot reserve them in advance, but with the new calendar software, we can.
I have a quick question about habitual abusers. Is there some way that you've handled that? Not that I'm suggesting that you block them, but you do something to make sure the people who have done that are aware of the problems it's causing. Or block them.
Yeah. So what we do, so what we do right now is when the hotspots are overdue, once a week we take a look at the due dates, and anything that's overdue, we contact the patron and ask them to bring it back and let them know we're going to turn the data off.
I know, but I'm talking about someone who habitually does it, not that person, because that person would be me. So, and then I would apologize. So I'm just,
And a lot of people, it's accidental. It's not common that we have somebody who habitually abuses it, but we have had that situation, which is why we want to adjust the policy, specifically adding language that gives me the ability to temporarily suspend their hotspot borrowing privileges.
That's what I needed to hear.
Yep.
Okay. Great.
And I've worded that in a vague way because I really want to be careful about setting policies on a collection that is different from the rest of it.
Absolutely.
I
And I
want to give
totally agree with
myself,
that approach, that it's, yeah. I just want to make sure that that was either in your head or in the
Yep.
general philosophy of what you were doing.
yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's gonna, in those situations, it gives us a little bit more ground to stand on where it's actually in the policy.
All right.
A question, Jen. The loan period, it says the loan period for hotspots is 3 weeks with no renewals. Do you want that to be that concrete in the policy versus giving you some flexibility to adjust the loan period if there's an increase in demand or a decrease in demand, or a special use case where someone has a justifiable need for a longer period or for renewals, and it's not impacting other patrons?
It's a good question. What we have done with our other loan policies is kind of falls under the same thing. There's some discretion for an extended loan period already. So we just kind of treat it all the same. So there is on occasion, like the health department, when they're doing their vaccine clinics, we want to give them a hotspot for a longer period of time because they're doing so many, it doesn't make sense to have them return it just to come back and get it again, and maybe not have it and then really need it during one of those clinics. So we use the existing circulation and loan policies to kind of
Okay.
flex.
So you'd still have that flexibility if you needed it with this policies, right? Okay, great. That answers my question.
Right. Anybody else have a question? If not, would someone like to make a motion to accept the updated policy for borrowing hotspots?
I move that we accept the policy.
I'll second.
Was that you, Mitch?
It was.
Thank you. All right. All those in favor of accepting the updated policy for borrowing hotspots, please say aye. Brittany?
Brittany Burns, aye.
Mitch?
Mitch Cohen, aye.
Mary?
Mary Crowley, aye.
Pat Font?
Pat Fonts, aye.
Jim?
Jim Hogan, aye.
Jocelyn?
Jocelyn McCallany, aye.
Beth?
Beth Thomas, aye.
Richard?
Richard Tucker, aye.
Thank you. And Michelle Wehill also says aye. The motion carries, passes unanimously. All right, what's the next one?
Monday hours,
The Monday hours slash
right, slash.
full-time library assistant. You want to say anything about it, or do we all just want to say, yes, please?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
I could say a lot about it, but I don't know if I would just be preaching to the choir here.
Long overdue, long overdue.
Preaching.
Yeah, what I will say is I wish that I had thought of the Monday hours in my initial request several months ago, but better late than never, because when I started to look at it, we realized it would actually be very easy with the full-time position.
Full-time
Should say.
position.
Very important.
All right. Anybody have questions or comments for Richard?
Yeah, I'd just like to, again, say, and I'm not trying to skew this or anything, but I really object to the library having to raise money to pay salaries, pay municipal employees' salaries. I think that is the wrong approach. And if the town manager doesn't like that or wouldn't agree to that, we have town meetings for that purpose.
I will say, Richard, I agree with you. And in this case, we've already raised this money and it has been put aside specifically for the purposes of restoring a position. So I think in this case, it is to our advantage because it also lets us do it immediately. We don't have to get it back into the budget cycle because we're using money that's already sitting somewhere. But moving forward, if we're going to add any more people, Richard, this would not be my first way of trying to do it. So we'll start lobbying for the next position.
Yes, and to that point, it was not my first attempt at this. I just couldn't get it into the budget for this year any other way. So this was my plan B.
I too agree with Richard's concern, which he expressed the last time that we approached this. However, I would hate to vote negatively on this. That would send the wrong message, I think, to the town from the trustees. But I totally agree. I hate to, what's next? You know, they're going to ask us to go out and sell hot dogs and, you know, and in order to support the library, which is, you know, ridiculous. So the town ought to be stepping up to the plate and supporting these salary positions, which are needed and justifiable. So I totally agree with Richard, but I'm torn too. I'm not going to vote against it, but I don't like it.
Heard. And to that point, I think my next step would be, I mean, there is going to be some turnover at the town administrator, you know, in the with John leaving. So I'll give the Board of Selectmen some time to you know, replace somebody, get somebody new in. But I would really like to advocate for some kind of staffing study, whether it's just the library looking at our staffing levels, or if the selectmen choose to pursue a holistic look at all of the town departments. I've been hearing that maybe we're not the only town department that kind of finds ourselves in this position. I know that the senior center and the rec department supplement town staff with raised money to hire additional staff. So I think that would be a good next step for us. Because if we do want to continue to push for Thursday hours or any other hours extensions, then I don't know that we would want to raise the funds ourselves again for that. So yeah.
Yeah, I just don't think that's a sustainable model, but I'm glad that was going to be my next question about whether or not we thought there'd be a staffing study. So I think, you know, as a board, we should support that in any way that we can.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I will say there's been some light discussion with the Board of Selectmen and the current town administrator for doing that, and I think that will come up again once we hire somebody new.
Yeah, and like I said, I think the selectmen have a lot on their plate right now. So I won't push too hard right now. But you know, after town meeting, after there's a new town administrator, probably go through the proper channels and bring it up to the town administrator.
Yeah, it would be a hard thing to do without a permanent administrator in place. So
it would be almost impossible. Yeah. There just wouldn't be enough context for it.
Right.
So, you know, recognizing that would be probably next fiscal year or the fiscal year after. I just really didn't want to wait. And since we did have the annual appeal money that was set aside for Thursday hours, I thought, let me see how you feel about this.
The other thing to consider is, I know there's the agreement with the town to have the town eventually take it over, but in some ways it's unfair to the employee because let's say the funds weren't available a year from now or 2 years from now, then that person would be out of a job. So it's not really a tenable way to move forward.
I
Yeah.
agree with you, Jim. I've had experience where we've tried to make some changes outside the budget process. And while, again, it's not the finest way of approaching it or, the standard way of approaching it, we did it when it caught on with the patrons. When it came time to put it into a standard budget, we had a heck of a lot of support to continue it. So I like to look at it from that direction. It's better. It's kind of like your cup is half full, half empty at this point. It's
That's a good
place
point.
to start, but I totally
point.
agree with you. It's not the best way to finance a personnel, but in lieu of doing it any other way.
And if it helps at all, I have explained this to that staff member. He's aware of the risk. I'm also, the board, if you were to vote in the affirmative tonight, I would not necessarily consider that an automatic done. I did send this to the town administrator for his review. I know he's leaving in a couple of weeks, so it may have to escalate up to the Board of Selectmen, whatever's appropriate. But I would like somebody on the other side of this agreement to sort of be aware this is the plan and be in support of it, so that we can go in relatively certain that this is the plan that will be enacted, so that we're not stuck with, well, you did that, we didn't agree to that. And then, of course, if there's a global pandemic or something crazy that we all know could never happen.
That would never happen.
That happened the first time around with this.
Right.
Yeah. I think it was
That's
January
painful.
of 2020 that we
I
opened
remember.
Thursday night. And that didn't last too long.
Do we think maybe this approach is the problem and the universe is telling us don't do it this way?
Well,
That's why we're trying Monday
I
morning.
do now, thanks,
if
Justin.
another pandemic breaks out,
You're
then
welcome.
we'll know. Yeah, and we won't do it that way again.
I think I am the only
Right.
trustee who has not yet weighed in. I agree with Richard and the sentiment on the board that long and short, this is not the way to be adding staff. And I see the numbers. They are climbing and our staff is stretched as it is. And if there is any way to provide any sort of relief valve, Jen, you've made a great argument that Monday hours seem to be the way to go. This is the fastest way to make it happen. We set aside the money for this purpose before. But I am in agreement with the rest of the board that I think I will be voting in the affirmative on this tonight. And I think if it comes up this way again, that I would not be able to support it.
Excellent point. Jen, the other thing I would add now is if you put a committee together to work on the feasibility of this future in the budget, it would help to have patrons part of that committee. As many patrons who use the library at that particular time, part of that committee. Because reasoning, you have to have a reason to pursue that into the budget.
Sure.
So the numbers kind of speak for themselves.
Yep.
So, all right. If there is no further discussion, I can see any. If someone would like a motion to vote to approve the expenditure of $60,000 from the annual fund over 2 fiscal years to restore Monday morning hours by increasing the reference library assistant position from 19 hours to 40 hours per week. Would someone like to make that motion?
I will make that motion.
I will
Mm.
second.
Do I have to say it all over again?
Nope.
No.
Mary,
Good job.
did you second?
I'm sorry, who seconded?
Me, Mary.
Okay.
Mary, thank you.
You're welcome, Jim.
All right, for the roll call, all those in favor of the motion, Brittany,
Brittany Burns, aye.
Mitch,
Mitch Cohen, aye.
Mary Crowley,
Mary Crowley, aye.
Pat Fonts,
Pat Fonts, aye.
Jim Hogan,
Jim Hogan, aye.
Jocelyn,
Jocelyn McKellany, aye.
Beth,
Beth Thomas, aye.
Richard Tucker,
Richard Tucker, aye.
and Michelle Rehill also says aye. The motion carries in the affirmative unanimously. That was a lot, and it makes me so
Thank
happy.
you. Thank you. Really,
Thank you.
Thank all of you.
Thank you to the
I think-
staff for what they've been carrying up till now.
Yeah, it's a testament to the work you guys are doing for sure.
It really is.
And thank you, Jen, for the way you presented this in the director's report. You took something that was a little complicated and made it very, very understandable. And thank you.
Nice job.
When this actually goes into effect at the beginning of July, send us all a little note and maybe have, I don't know, some coffee and pastries or something like that on the Monday morning. We did do that on the Thursday that we opened very briefly.
And take pictures.
And I think we should celebrate this even more.
Sure.
Just as a little unofficial something to welcome the people that are coming in, many of whom probably won't even realize that it's new that we're open Monday.
No, there's so many people that already walk up to the door on Monday morning and pull on it.
Absolutely.
Here I am. Yeah.
Oh,
What's
well,
going on here?
then you'll get a pastry or coffee.
My wife has done that, and she should know better.
I remember Richard commenting on how many times he had done that and realized, oh, it's Monday morning.
Can we have like confetti rigged to the new crash bar for the first person who opens it that Monday morning?
Yes.
So I'm
I will
Or a
test it
balloon
on
drop.
Joanna.
Nice.
all
Don't
right.
tell her it was my idea.
One last thing for Michelle.
Mhm.
I'm looking through the stuff that I printed out. Could you just email me the exact wording of that last motion?
I can do that.
Thank you. So I'm not sure I have that exactly. Thanks.
All right. Okay. The next meeting will be April 11th, 2023. Will we be able to have it remotely, Mitch, or will we back?
Probably. So the
Sure.
current law that allows remote participation expires at the end of this month. The state Senate has already passed a 2-year extension. Last year, the House followed suit very quickly. There were some differences between the Senate and House versions. They both seemed to be on the same page. And when the Board of Selectmen met with the state legislatures as part of our meeting last night, and they all agreed that this was a priority from everybody's perspective. So I hope that they will get this all completely done before the end of the month. But there is some risk that there might be some delay, as there was the first time this was extended a couple of years ago, of a few days where remote participation was not allowed. But I think it should be planned with the expectation that it would be remote again, assuming that everyone wants to continue with that, which I support.
All right. How do people feel about that? I really
think
like.
it's-
Oh, I was gonna say I like sitting here in my PJs, but I'm not really sitting here in my PJs.
I think it's
Yeah.
convenient on a day like today when
Exactly. Yeah.
we would have had to move the meeting. And I think that we likely will see closer to or full quorums more often.
Absolutely.
I know there's been times where I hope nobody's listening, speeding to the library, even though I'm a mile away, like, oh my gosh, it's 6:58 and I'm not at the library yet. And I know it's a lot easier to slide down my hardwood hall and turn on the Zoom than it is to get in my car and drive the speed limit to the library.
Good save. Oh. All
I
right. So,
wonder too if maybe we could do regular meetings on Zoom and perhaps quarterly or twice a year in person so that we kind of keep that personal connection. We're in the library space. I don't know. I think that might be a nice middle ground if possible.
Brittany, I think the way we tied it to an event last month was a great way to do a both and, where even if it's not a regularly scheduled quarterly, we make a commitment as a board of trustees that when there's something at the library, let's tie our meeting to it. So we're all on site celebrating whatever's happening, not that we wouldn't anyway, but it's a great way to extend the excitement of the evening with each other.
All right, that sounds good. So for now, we're going to go with, it will be a remote meeting unless the legislature doesn't approve it. In which case we will change our mind and have it on site. But I like your other ideas as well, having meetings in, but May is a nice time of year. I don't think it will, oh,
Don't say it out loud.
I don't think anything like what happened today will happen in May.
It has.
No,
Yeah.
Mother's Day.
I know,
We've
that's
had a
what
couple of
Mother's
close ones.
Day.
as
Yeah.
soon as the words
Yeah.
were coming out of my mouth, I said, nope.
I have a question.
Hmm.
If we know in advance that we won't be able to attend a meeting, should we notify you, Michelle? Is there a procedure for that or?
You can email me or Jen
Okay.
or text if you have our cell phone numbers. I might actually share mine for it if you'd like at some point, not in the meeting.
Same, if you want mine, yeah, just call me at the office.
All right.
I thought that was going to be, if you want my number, call me, Jen. And I was going to,
Yeah, in my office. She saved it. All right. Any other questions, comments? If not, I will say two things. One, beware the Ides of March. And two, good night, Kate. And three, the chair would welcome a motion to have the meeting adjourned.
So moved.
Thank you, Mitch.
second,
Thank you, Jocelyn. All right, one more roll call and we're out of here. Brittany Burns,
Brittany Burns, I.
Mitch Cohen,
Rich Cohen, aye.
Mary Crowley,
Mary Crowley, aye.
Pat Fonts,
Pat Fonch, aye.
Jim Hogan,
Tim Hogan, aye.
Jocelyn McKellany,
Jocelyn McKellany, aye.
Beth Samus,
Beth Samus, I.
Richard Tucker,
Richard Tucker, aye.
Michelle Wehel also says aye. The motion passes unanimously to adjourn the meeting at 7:48 p.m. See you all next month.